Hello YouTube and welcome back. Today I've got Forge Tips video 6 for you, and I know this is something a lot of you have been really excited about, so I'm going to go ahead and cut right to the chase. This video is going to cover the three most important things that are on your map. The very first one is incentives and deterrents. Now, what are incentives and deterrents? Well, incentives are rewards that draw the player in, and deterrents are negative objects that keep players away from an area. First off, we're going to cover incentives, which you actually already have on your map. There's a lot of types of incentives: power weapons and armor abilities, cover, or even a really good position on the map. There's also a lot of types of deterrents, though, which may include high exposure, explosives, hard to reach areas, stuff like that. Those can all be deterrents. So when placing incentives on your map, you're trying to get the player to follow a certain path to that incentive, or forcing them to go into a certain area. And remember that incentives, most of the time, are not permanent, such as with a power weapon. Now, a good incentive keeps the player on a certain path. For example, let's say you spawn with a clear view of the sniper rifle. What are most people going to do? They're going to go straight for that sniper rifle. A good example of that is map Cliffhanger, or Blue Spawn on Boardwalk. This causes the player to follow a path from their spawn straight to the sniper. And an important thing to remember is that the players are always going to operate in a straight line from point A to point B, B being the incentives. Now, try to keep the incentives on your map to a minimum, because if everyone gets a special reward, then the rewards aren't special. Also, think about incentives in high-risk areas or high-exposure areas, mixing up those deterrents and incentives a little bit, because that can create some pretty awesome gameplay. But it can also be difficult to control the player's movements that way as well. So let's say you make a version of Pinnacle with rockets in the center. Your players are going to go straight for those rockets. This is going to allow other players to hang back and pick off the enemy, while the more hasty ones rush the middle. And also, somebody rushing for rockets is going to take that incentive with them. They're going to run in, grab the rockets, and take the nearest path out. Specifically, if you ran in from, let's say, the tower, you're going to just keep going straight and jump straight off down towards the man cannon. That is a moving incentive, and you need to take those into you need to account for those when you're placing your incentives as well. It's difficult to do sometimes, and no one's perfect at it, but it helps to control your players. Now, deterrents are the opposite of incentives. Perhaps your map has got a spawn on it that's way too easy to camp in. Put a couple fusion coils or a plasma battery in there or something in order to stop players from camping there. Maybe you want to cause your gameplay to focus on the center of the map. You need to expose the sides of the map with very little cover. Don't put a lot of cover on the sides of the map, and put a lot of cover in the center of the map. That's very uncommon, but it's a good example. Maybe you want to place a turret on your bases in order to deter the enemy from direct attacks, which is what I do in this video. There's a lot of ways to deter your players, but remember to keep the deterrents to the bare minimum, because too many and your map's not going to be very fun at all. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and move into the holy grail of map elements, and that is your spawning. Spawning is by far the #1 most important thing for your map. I know I say a lot of this stuff is really important, but this time, I'm dead serious. Spawning is the most important thing for your map. And I'm not talking about weapon spawns. Those are important, but I'm talking about person spawns. And I'm going to explain a little bit of this to you. I'm going to show you the basics of setting up spawns. But later on, when I start my advanced tips series, which is going to be shortly after I finish these videos, I only have a couple more videos left in the basic series. And I'm going to start my advanced series after this, which is basically going to reiterate everything that I've taught you so far, but on a much higher scale. It's going to be not for beginners. These tips are just for beginners. The tips I'm going to be giving you are for moderate forgers, people that kind of know what they're doing, but they need a little bit of help along the way. So, but we're just going to stick with the basics for now. So, spawning, it is the most important thing that you can do, and a bad spawn is going to break your map. Now, you need to remember that the key to placing spawns is to put yourself in that spawn's position facing the direction the spawn is facing. Is the spawn disorienting? Maybe there's not enough cover for that spawn. There's tons of rules to remember when placing your spawns. Never have them facing a wall. I have them facing a wall in this video, but I actually went back and changed that because I went on my map and playtested a little bit. I spawned and I was extremely disoriented. I was like, where am I? So never have them facing a wall and never have them out in the open, especially if you have vehicles or any long-range weapons on your map. The initial spawns are a little bit different. You can have them out in the open, just not to where they can see each other. I have mine out in the open here, my initial spawns, but they can't see each other due to the middle structure. Oh, excuse me. So we're going to start off by placing our team spawns, and I'm not syncing this video this time. I haven't been syncing the videos lately because it's a huge hassle and it causes a lot more work to make these videos, and I have a lot of stuff on my plate right now, so I'm just kind of being a little bit lazy here and not syncing the videos. But I am showing you, the video is just showing you examples of what I'm talking about, kind of, just not with the audio. But we're going to start off by placing our team spawns, which usually are red and blue. No, it's always red and blue, actually. I don't ever set up my maps for multi-team because I'm lazy, but it's set up in a similar fashion, and I will show you in an advanced spawning video how to set up multi-team. But there's two types of spawning, generally. There's actually a lot more than that, but there's two main types of spawning, and that's dynamic spawning and static spawning. My sinuses are going a little crazy right now. With your dynamic spawning, it's very difficult to spawn kill, but you're going to get a little disoriented upon spawning because you're not going to know what side of the map you're on unless each side is extremely different, or you have an asymmetric map. With static spawns, you're always going to spawn on one side of the map, but that makes it so much easier to spawn kill. And different map layouts call for different spawn systems. Static is not bad. Dynamic is not good. They're different. They're two completely different things. Now, two maps come to mind: Zealot and Asylum. Now, originally both maps had static spawning. Zealot's layout actually does have a large amount of cover for spawns, and it doesn't have any long-range weapons, really, only mid to short range, and it doesn't have any vehicles. So static spawning works pretty good on that map. It's difficult to spawn kill on Zealot. And the next map is Asylum. It has a medium amount of cover, not very much, and two long-range weapons, the two snipers. It also has an abundance of mid-range weapons, and that causes a huge amount of spawn killing. The same thing goes for Pinnacle. It's got a lot of long-range weapons and very little cover. Now, I'm a fan of dynamic spawning, so that's what I'm going to be showing you in this video, and in the advanced tips, I'm going to show you how to set up static spawns. For 4v4 maps, I start off with two team-based initial spawns, and a team-based respawn point with a neutral respawn point. Those are your four starting spawns. Now, the two team-based, if you don't know how to change the team, just press X, and it should be the very first option is team. Change it to blue or red based on which side of the map you're having that spawn work for. And then those are going to be initial spawns, which you'll find in the spawning menu. And then spawn a respawn point and set it to the team that you want. And then spawn another respawn point, but leave its team neutral. Group those all together in a relatively small area, like I do in the video, and this is where your team is going to spawn at the very first of the game. Now, I say do this instead of 4 initial spawns, because the 2 initial spawns and the respawn point are going to cause 3 players to spawn there, and that magnetizes the remaining neutral respawn point so that the 4th player can spawn there. It also doubles to serve that if there are no enemies in that base, then 99.9% of the time you're going to spawn in your base. So it's still dynamic spawning, but it really helps to keep you oriented. Now, you're not always going to spawn in your base, but 99% of the time you're going to spawn on that team-based respawn point if there's not an enemy nearby. Anytime a teammate is near a spawn point, it magnetizes the respawn point so that you have a greater chance of spawning there. But when an enemy is near a respawn point, it negatively affects that respawn so that you have a less chance of spawning there. You need to learn about influence. I'll talk more about it in the advanced video. It's actually quite a complicated system. So learn about that if you can, though. Now, once you have both of your team spawns set up, place neutral respawn points around the map. Make sure they're respawn points, not initial spawns. Don't have any initial spawns. Respawn points work fine, believe me. This is going to set your map up for dynamic spawning. Pick your locations wisely, though, because a bad spawn makes a bad map. Your spawn point should be pointing towards a clear path forward and should at least have some cover surrounding it. Remember, whenever players spawn, 99% of the time they already have their finger pressing forward on the joystick. So once you've got both place neutral respawn points. Now we're gonna set up custom spawning for every game type, which is gonna allow every game type to have its own specific spawns. With most game types, such as CTF, Assault, and Slayer, you're gonna have the same spawnings. But with game types like Infection and Juggernaut, you need a more advanced spawn system so that your game doesn't end within 30 seconds. Now we're going to set up our own custom spawns for Slayer. If you're not already in the Slayer game type, you need to go back to the Forge lobby and put Slayer as the game type and then enter the map again. Every team-based spawn you have needs to be labeled. You have 6 team-based spawns if you've done what I told you so far. And that's 2 initial spawns for each team and 1 respawn point for each team. To label them, press X with the spawn highlighted and go to the Advanced tab. Then set the game-specific field to True and set the game type label field to Slayer. Do this for all your initial spawns and both of your team-based respawn points. Now that we've covered incentives, deterrents, and spawning, we're going to move on to the last section of this video, which is really short. And this one covers the boundaries. These are probably the third most important part of your map because they determine where players can go and where they can't go. Now, there's 2 types of boundaries. There's kill boundaries and safe boundaries. Safe boundaries define the playable area of your map. So there's also 2 types of safe boundaries, though. There's hard safe and soft safe. Now, when you step outside of a hard safe boundary, you are instantly killed. But when you step outside of a soft safe boundary, it begins a 10-second death timer that you see on a lot of maps. Now, kill boundaries work in a similar fashion, only they're the reverse of a safe boundary. You step inside a hard kill boundary and you die instantly. But if you step inside of a soft kill boundary and it begins the 10-second death clock. Now, boundaries have a ton of different uses. On most maps, it's a good idea to cover the entire playable area of your map with a soft, safe boundary. Use a soft kill boundary for problem areas like a ledge or the top of a tower that would cause some unfair gameplay. Put a soft, safe boundary up there. I personally never use hard, safe boundaries. Ever. I've never used them and I never will. They're useless to me because they are much too restricting of player movement. Now, hard kill boundaries, I only really use those in situations where you can, quote, fall to your death, unquote. As a matter of fact, whenever you die from a hard kill boundary, that's what it says. You fell to your death. Hard kill boundaries have some other uses, but I generally don't use those very much either. I stick with soft kill boundaries and soft safe boundaries. I always cover the entire playable area of my map with a soft safe boundary, and then anywhere I don't want players going, I use soft kill boundaries. So if they get up in that area, it says return to the battlefield 10, 9, 8, blah, 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 blah. Now, boundaries override each other, though. And the chain of command for boundaries, starting from the bottom, soft safe boundaries are overridden by hard safe boundaries. So if you have a hard safe boundary somewhere on your map, and you put a soft safe boundary somewhere else, even if they're inside that soft safe boundary, they're going to die because they're not inside the hard safe boundary. In turn, soft kill boundaries override hard safe boundaries and soft safe boundaries. So if you have a soft kill area inside of a hard safe boundary or a soft safe boundary, it's still going to have that 10-second death clock timer. And hard kill boundaries override everything. If you have a hard kill area inside of let's just say you have a soft safe boundary inside of a hard kill boundary inside of a hard safe boundary inside of a soft kill boundary, and then you put a hard kill boundary right in the middle. That hard kill boundary is going to kill you no matter if you're in a safe zone or not. It overrides everything. So keep those in mind as well. and be wary of where you place those boundaries. And make sure you, if you're using a kill boundary, make sure you cover that whole area. You need to play test a little bit in order to figure out exactly how much you need to cover, but don't cover it too much or you're going to start affecting gameplay. Now, that's pretty important to remember, though. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I'll have another video out as soon as possible. I'm planning on having a video blog out. I'm updating my website as much as I can, and I'm doing all I can right now to get videos out to you guys. It's just really hard to make a video with my schedule right now. I'm working a lot, and all that good stuff. But the next video, the next couple videos are going to cover playtesting your map, and they're going to set up all the other game types. We're going to set up this map for every single game type there is. I think I'm even going to set it up for race and invasion. God help me. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for this video. Make sure you subscribe, leave me a comment, thumbs up. Check out my channel for videos like this one and more. And also check out my website. This is Envoy of Eve signing out, and I'm going to see you Starside.